However, let me give you a brief explanation about this, and then we'll talk about the nosing. So, let me open the template file of the profile, and afterwards I want to save this file as, I name it 202. After this, let me delete these by this way, and then I start from scratch drawing some reference planes. As you can see on the screen, one horizontal and the vertical. I want to associate this to distance, thread distance of finish, and this the thickness. I associate this, afterwards associating this to depth, however here I want to edit depth, cancel, edit, watch this, based on the image, this is the depth. After that, I pick the dimension, I associate this to a new parameter, and I want to name it nosing. Well done. Afterwards, I want to change these values to test the parameters. 11 point half of inch, 292.1 millimeters, and then for height 1.5 inches by this way, 3.35.8, 1 inch, 25.4 for nosing. Very well. And then for the thickness, let me see this part. I add a parameter here, or parameter. I name it thickness. Okay. Then for the thickness, 3 to 4 of inches. This will be the result, 19 millimeters. Then let me select the line, and then I draw it like this way, the profile with nosing. However, I want to add the fillet at the corner using tangent, 5 millimeters for the radius. I don't assign parameter to here. I specify 0 for the distance of finishing. Save and load. Selecting the thread, or I can find it from the project browser. Double click, specifying 0 for the nosing length, and then I choose the new profile. This is the result, 0 for thread thickness. Let me see, 20. And let me check the thickness, 3 to 4 inches, 19.1. Okay. And for the depth, we have considered 30 centimeters for the depth of the thread. I mean, in this part for depth, I specify 300s, and however I should add it to the nosing, 325. This is the result. So by this way we can model the threads with the nosings and then replace them. We just modeled 2 samples as an example to teach you how we model them, how we replace them, and how we change the materials, or I don't know, modifying the parameters and so on. 30. Okay. Then we want to get back to the nosing profile. Again, new family. As I mentioned, here we got some dedicated template files to metric profile Stair nosing. So we open it, and it is specific to the nosing. Here, as you can see, this is dedicated to the thread surface, as you can see, or this is the thread of the model or the stair. And we're gonna consider this line as the riser face. As you can see, if we get back to the project to show you, this is the riser face and this is the thread surface. So we can draw the profile in this quadrant. Watch this, we're gonna model the nosing profile in this quadrant as mentioned. Okay. And these are the some notes that we can delete them, but let us continue. Firstly, we draw a reference plane here and one more vertically. This is the thickness and this is the length of the nosing or nosing length. So we create a parameter and then we name this thickness, done, and naming the other one as nosing length. Great. Then in the continuation, if we specify 3 centimeters for nosing length and 50 millimeters for thickness, then I start drawing. I start drawing a line 1 centimeter, then moving it down 5 millimeters, again 5, 1 centimeters, 1 centimeter, 5 millimeter, again. Watch this. Then I pick the line and I draw this. Then let me select these parts since I want to move them. I uncheck this join, enabling constraint, and I move them for 5 millimeters. Like this way. Then I draw an arc. Like this. After this was completed, I open the profile usage, then I set it to Stair nosing. Then let me save the file as Stair nosing and loading it into the project. Let me select the stairs or the runs. Then from nosing profile, I choose it, IR Stair nosing. I replace this profile. I set 0 for nosing length, or I can define it 3 centimeters, like this way. And then I want to minimize the depth of the thread and specify 30 or 28 centimeters, since we have added the nosing length to 175. Watch this. Right now we got the nosing customizedly. I specify 30 for the thread, okay, and then for nosing profile I open it, then we can control the thickness 30 equal to the thread. However, I should minimize the height offset or the height of the thread, and as we have associated them to some parameters, we can easily control them, modify the positions, dimensions, and so on, as I showed you. In the continuation, we can create a profile for the riser face. I save the file and then I close it. riser, I can open a new family template file, metric profile, or metric profile stair nosing. You know, since we can use these notes and this guidance that we know where we should model riser face, thread face, and also the profile of the nosing. Then I set the profile usage to riser, stair riser, and I should draw the riser face here. This is the offset, and this is the length and the thickness of the riser. So we don't have to look for the correct position. I name it offset of thread, and naming the other one riser height. Okay, and associating this to riser thickness. Watch this. Then let me specify some values. 50 for offset, 15 for height, and 20 for riser height. I mean thickness. Then from create, I draw a rectangle. Here we got a simple rectangle. Maybe you wanted to draw some other geometries. For example, you can add some grooves or some designings as you wish. I save the file like this way. Stair riser, then I load it into the project. After that, we enable the riser, and I choose the new riser profile. I replace it 0, and okay. Let's see. However, we should move the riser profile. Let me open it and changing the offset 50 face. Let me get back to its family template file. We did not consider an offset value to make it parametric. So let me move these notes. Let me do something. I should solve this. I delete the profile, and then I move the reference plane forward, drawing another reference plane 19, and I consider this to offset, and I delete thickness. I change the position by this way. Afterwards, associating this to riser offset, for instance. And then let me check them out. 10 for offset and 20 for thickness. Again, I start drawing the profile using line. Drawing the rectangle, and then I add some grooves. But I'm just drawing a sample to show you the path, the method, how do we use it, and set the profile usage to stair riser. Then we'll confine it in the riser profiles. Watch this, and then we open the riser profile. 20 for the offset, 25. This is the result. Check it out. Then if I get back and see the height from this part, I want to measure it. 167. So I click, and then I define 150. If I subtract it from 50, then it would be 117. Watch this. Look, we were expecting this. Again, I want to select the stairs right here, and I can increase the value, minimize it based on our needs or based on the projects. 40, as we have moved them. To fix this, I can get back to the raster riser and then defining 15 for riser offset to connect it to the riser face, and then in thread profile 275 300s, 290, 285. Watch this. So, got no limitness, guys. You can model whatever profiles for rising, thread, nosing dedicatedly and also customizedly, and then replace them with the default ones.